The digital trap. What happens when you lose yourself in a world that isn't real? At what point do we stop being present in our real lives? In a sprawling city, illuminated by neon lights and holographic advertisements, there was a place known only by whispers: the digital circus. This wasn't a circus with acrobats or clowns. It was a virtual experience, a labyrinth of alternate realities where people could become anything, anyone. Inside, you could defy gravity, breathe underwater, even fly with wings made of light. It was the ultimate escape from a mundane, monotonous life. People flocked to the digital circus for different reasons. Some were bored of their day-to-day existence. Some sought adventure, others a respite from pain. Once inside, time became fluid. Hours felt like minutes, and reality felt like a fading dream. For Oliver, the allure of the digital circus had been too strong to resist. A software engineer by day, his real world had become a series of lines of code and routines that suffocated him. He longed for something more, a place where he could be free, where creativity had no limits, and where he could leave his worries behind. When he first entered the digital circus, it was everything he had dreamed of. His avatar, a majestic figure adorned with digital armor, roamed through fantastical cities in the sky, danced with fire beneath stars, and explored oceans filled with creatures that glowed in a kaleidoscope of colors. He could be whoever he wanted, go wherever his imagination led. But as the days passed, Oliver began to notice something strange. The longer he stayed inside, the more distant his memories of the real world became. Faces of people he knew blurred in his mind, and the echo of their voices grew fainter. It wasn't just Oliver either. He noticed other users, avatars wandering aimlessly, their eyes hollow, their movements slow as if they had forgotten why they had come in the first place. One day, Oliver stumbled upon a hidden area within the digital circus, a part of the virtual world that was never mentioned in any of the forums or guides. The space was a vast, empty field, covered in fog. In the center stood an ancient-looking carousel, with its horses frozen in time, their eyes glowing faintly. It felt eerie, out of place. As he approached, an old, weathered figure appeared beside the carousel. A ringmaster, dressed in digital tattered clothes, but with a presence that felt almost real. "You're lost, aren't you?" the ringmaster asked, his voice a blend of static and familiarity. Oliver hesitated. "No, I'm not lost. I'm just exploring." The ringmaster smiled, but it was a sad, knowing smile. That's what they all say at first, but the digital circus has a way of consuming more than just your time. It takes pieces of you. How long have you been here? Do you remember? Oliver thought for a moment but couldn't answer. Days? Weeks? He wasn't sure anymore. The longer you stay, the more you forget who you were. The circus isn't just a game. It's a trap. A digital prison for those who seek too much escape. People think they come here to find themselves, but they end up losing everything that makes them real. Oliver felt a cold chill. He had always believed the digital circus was just a harmless fantasy, a playground for the mind. But as he stood there, he realized that the line between fantasy and reality had blurred. The more he escaped into the circus, the more he became disconnected from the world outside, from his own life. "You can still leave," the ringmaster continued, "but you need to make a choice. Do you want to live in a world that's real, or a world that only feels real?" Oliver looked around at the carousel, the fog, the endless digital landscape stretching beyond him. It was beautiful, enchanting, and limitless, but it was also hollow. The circus offered wonders, but at the cost of his soul. He made his decision. Logging out felt like waking from a deep sleep. When Oliver removed his headset, he blinked at the sunlight pouring through his window. His apartment was quiet, and for the first time in a long while, He could hear the ticking of the clock on the wall. The real world felt slow, grounded, and imperfect, but it was his. It was a place where his memories mattered, where his relationships were real, and where his time had meaning. The digital circus would always be there, waiting for him to return. But Oliver knew better now. Sometimes the most important journey was not the one into fantasy, but the one back to reality. Pomni's disappearing act. Pomni sat on a quiet ledge of the digital circus, staring off into the endless, surreal landscape that stretched before her. The twisting, looping roads, the carnival tents that swayed as if alive, and the sky, a constant shifting of colors that never settled, were all a part of the chaos that was now her reality. But for Pomni, no matter how long she had been here, she could never quite adjust. The bizarre nature of the circus weighed on her, and every day felt like a new challenge to her sanity. "Pomni!" Ragatha's voice broke through the quiet, drawing her out of her thoughts. She turned to see Ragatha waving at her, motioning her over to where the others were gathered near the main tent. "Come on! We're about to start a new game. Something Jax came up with." Pomni hesitated. The thought of Jax's games usually sent a chill down her spine. They often involved pranks or challenges that left the others frustrated or worse. But there was nothing else to do, and she figured it would be better than staying in her own thoughts. She hopped down and jogged over to the group. Jax was, unsurprisingly, grinning from ear to ear. "Ah, Pomni, glad you could make it," he said, flashing his usual smug grin. "I've got something special cooked up today. It's a classic, hide and seek, but with a twist." Zubul groaned. "What's the twist this time, Jax? We all know you're going to make it impossible or just annoying." Jax's grin widened. "Oh, ye of little faith. It's nothing too crazy, I swear. Just a bit of an extra challenge. You hide, and if I don't find you in 5 minutes, you win." "That doesn't sound too bad," Kinger muttered, rubbing his chin suspiciously. "But what's the catch?" "No catch," Jax said, his hands up in mock surrender. "Just good old hide and seek. Though, the place you hide might be a bit unpredictable." Pomni glanced around at the others. Ragatha seemed cautious, Zubul skeptical, and Kinger his usual jittery self. But despite their reservations, they all agreed to play. The rules were simple. They had 5 minutes to hide anywhere in the circus, and Jax would have 10 minutes to find them. If he failed, they won. But knowing Jax, Pomni had a sinking feeling that it wouldn't be as straightforward as he was making it sound. "Ready? Set! Go!" Jax called out, turning his back to give them time to hide. Pomni sprinted into the circus grounds, weaving between the various odd attractions and structures. She wasn't sure where to hide. Everything in the digital circus was so open, so exposed. Then, as she passed by one of the lesser-used tents, she spotted a small trapdoor hidden in the shadow of the tent's side. "Perfect," she whispered to herself, quickly opening the trapdoor and slipping inside. The hidden space. The trapdoor led her into a small, dimly lit chamber. It was strange. It didn't look like it was part of the circus at all. The walls were covered in intricate, glowing symbols that shifted and changed as she watched them. The air felt different here, heavier, as if something was pressing down on her. Pomni shivered, but she forced herself to stay calm. This was a great hiding spot. Jax would never find her down here. She crouched in the corner, waiting for the game to unfold. Minutes passed in silence. The only sound was the faint humming of the glowing symbols on the walls. She tried to focus, to keep her mind on the game, but something about the space unsettled her. It was as if the walls were alive, shifting and breathing in time with her own breath. Then, without warning, the trapdoor above her slammed shut. Pomni jumped, her heart racing. "What the—" She rushed to the door and tried to pull it open, but it wouldn't budgie. It was sealed teat, as if it had never been there at all. Panic started to rise in her chest. "Okay, Pomni, don't freak out," she whispered to herself, tugging at the door again. "It's just a trick, probably something Jax set up." But deep down, she knew this wasn't one of Jax's pranks. Something was wrong. The room began to change. The symbols on the walls brightened, pulsing with an eerie light. The air grew even heavier, and Pomni felt a strange sensation, like the room was shrinking, closing in on her. She took a step back, her heart pounding in her ears. Suddenly, the symbols on the walls shifted, forming into words she could understand. "You are disappearing." Pomni's blood ran cold. What? What does that mean? She looked down at her hands and gasped. Her fingers were fading, becoming translucent, as if she were slowly turning into mist. "No, no, no!" she cried, frantically waving her hands in the air, but they only grew fainter. Her legs, her arms, her entire body was vanishing piece by piece. "Help!" Pomni screamed, but her voice was swallowed by the heavy air. She ran to the walls, pounding on them, but they felt insubstantial, like she was hitting air. The words on the walls pulsed again. "You are becoming part of the circus." Pomni's mind raced. Becoming part of the circus? Was this what had happened to the others before her? Had they been swallowed by the digital circus, lost forever in its bizarre, shifting reality? Her body was nearly gone now, only a faint outline of herself remaining. Tears filled her eyes as she realized there was no escape. She was disappearing, just like the symbols had said. But then, just as she was about to fade completely, the trapdoor above her burst open. Ragatha's voice called out, frantic, "Pomni, are you in here?" Pomni tried to shout, but her voice was barely a whisper. "Ragatha, I'm here." Ragatha's head appeared through the trapdoor, her eyes wide with horror. "Pomni, hang on!" She reached down, grabbing for Pomni's fading form. For a moment, their hands touched, and Pomni felt a spark of hope. But then Ragatha's hand passed right through her, as if she were nothing but air. "No, no, no, no!" Ragatha cried, her eyes filling with tears. Pomni felt herself slipping further, the world around her dissolving into mist. But in her final moments, she looked up at Ragatha and managed a weak smile. Tell the others," she whispered. "Don't let the circus take them, too." And then, with a final flicker, Pomni disappeared, leaving nothing behind but a faint shimmer of light, the aftermath. Ragatha sat by the open trapdoor, staring down into the empty space where Pomni had just been. Her hands trembled as she tried to make sense of what had just happened. Jax, Zubul, and Kinger appeared behind her, their faces full of confusion and concern. "Ragatha?" Zubul asked cautiously. "Where's Pomni?" Ragatha shook her head, her voice barely a whisper. "She's gone." Jax frowned, looking down into the hole. "Gone? What do you mean, gone? She can't just be gone." "I don't know how to explain it," Ragatha said, her voice cracking. "She disappeared. The circus, it took her." The group fell into a stunned silence, the weight of her words sinking in. For a long moment, no one moved or spoke. The circus had always been strange, full of tricks and games. But this was something far darker. Pomni had vanished, consumed by the circus itself. And now, more than ever, they realized how dangerous their reality truly was. The digital circus was not just a bizarre world. It was a trap, and they were all in danger of becoming part of it, just like Pomni. As the group slowly left the tent, Ragatha glanced back one last time, at the spot where Pomni had vanished. She swallowed hard, her heart heavy with guilt and fear. "We need to be more careful," She whispered to herself, "The circus is watching and waiting." And with that, the Hall of Mirrors stood silently behind them, its secrets locked away, waiting for the next to fall into its trap.